My name is Deborah Grayson Regal, and I have been a professional speaker and a speaking instructor for over 20 years. From my earliest beginnings as a high school national champion in public speaking and speech writing, to my role today as an international corporate trainer and a visiting professor of executive communications at Peking University, China, I have been collecting and using the best tips, tools, and techniques to help people present with more polish, power, and professionalism. The skills that I will be sharing with you are based on my own experience in instructing hundreds of thousands of speakers around the world. I hope that you will find them as helpful as they have, and I thank you for the opportunity to work with you. In your previous presentations to nurse practitioner or physician assistant colleagues or other healthcare providers, have you ever thought to yourself, my presentation would be great, except for that tough audience? Too often, we think of our audience as a barrier to our success, a roadblock to hurdle over or work around. However, when you begin to think of your audience as your strategic partner in the success of your presentation, your relationship with them could change for the better, and so might your outcome. I like to think about partnering with my audience as providing them with high-quality customer service. Many companies are built on customer service and remind employees each and every day of how important the customers are. Now let's replace the concept of customer with audience and see how we might better serve our listeners throughout our presentation. The audience is not an interruption of our presentation. They are the purpose of it. How does that sound to you? To me, it sounds right on the money. Our audience members are the whole reason we are in the room giving a presentation. Without them, we're speaking to an empty room, and trust me, few things can make you feel sillier than that. The audience is not somebody to argue or match wits with. Nobody ever won an argument with an audience. Think about it. When there is a difference of opinion between you and your listeners, you're not going to earn many points trying to prove them wrong. You want to maintain the positive relationship between you and your audience, and telling one or more of them publicly that you are right and they are not is the quickest way to violate whatever trust you have built up. The way you make your audience feel important is to regard them as such. The way you make your audience feel valued is to regard them as valuable. Fighting with them violates both. An audience member is a person who brings us his or her wants. It's our job as presenters to deliver what they're looking for. Your listeners want to learn something. They want to gain new skills, insights, or a general education on subject matter. They want to be engaged, appreciated, and tapped for their perspectives and contributions. They don't want to be ignored, maneuvered around, or run over. The most successful presenters take their audience's interests and desires seriously and handles them to the best of their ability. By doing this, we put valuable deposits into the relationship bank accounts we hold with our listeners. And those deposits pay untold dividends throughout the presentation. When we regard our relationship with our audience as a strategic partnership, we increase the chances for a successful outcome from their point of view and from ours. So, what is a successful outcome from the audience's point of view? It's one that addresses both their style needs and their substance needs. Most audience members fall into three categories: prisoners, vacationers, and sponges. Prisoners are those people who are not getting either their style or substance needs met. They range from the deeply bored to the sometimes hostile. Maybe they're in the room because somebody told them they had to be there. Or maybe something happened on the way to work that had already ruined their whole day, and your presentation just happens to be a part of that day. You'll recognize a prisoner from his or her crossed arms, tapping foot, and striped uniform. It's hard to get a prisoner in the audience to shift out of their imprisonment mindset. However, there are a few things to keep in mind when dealing with prisoners. First, don't let the prisoner mentality become contagious and throw you off your presentation. You need to stay positive and in control of the room because you owe it to all of the other participants who came to hear what you have to say. Your audience will follow your lead for as long as you appear in control of the room and yourself. If you seem calm, cool, and collected, Your audience will ignore the prisoner and focus on you. Second, don't assume you know what your prisoner is thinking or feeling. If you assume that he or she is angry with you or already knows all of your content or is disappointed in your presentation, you will psych yourself out before you've even begun, and you'll lose the rest of your audience. Unless you can be 100% sure that you have done something directly offensive to him or her, assume that it has nothing to do with you. Third, keep your affect neutral when dealing with the prisoner. Don't let him or her see you sweat, get upset, or get defensive. Remind your teeth to unclench, your fists to loosen up, and your shoulders to drop from your ears when you address the prisoner. That way, you won't be signaling the world that you're worried. The second kind of audience member is the vacationer. This is the person who isn't unhappy to be there. He or she is just drifting in and out of attentiveness. Here's a little secret. We all float in and out of vacation mode during any presentation that lasts longer than 5 minutes. There's only so long any of us can offer our undivided attention, no matter how captivating the speaker is. Maybe she has a real vacation on her mind. Ooh, 3 days until Cabo. Or maybe she's taking a working vacation, thinking about the emails piling up in her inbox while she's listening to you. You'll recognize the vacationer from her doodling, asking a question that's already been asked and answered, or from her staring at the ceiling. Now, your vacationer provides a great opportunity. You can help her shift into sponge mode, or you can let her drift into prisoner mode. Which one would you prefer? To help a vacationer become engaged and involved, try the following. First, tell yourself that your vacationers want to be there. They just need a little help remembering their WIFM. What's in it for me? Whenever possible, use these phrases to recapture their focus. Here's why this is so important for you to know, or what this means for you is, the word you prompts your listeners to think about themselves, everyone's favorite topic, and to pay attention. Second, get your vacationers involved, as well as your prisoners and sponges. Break up your presentation by taking an opinion poll, asking a question that calls for a response, or splitting the audience into small groups to do some quick brainstorming. Anything that allows your listeners to become active participants in the process will help. Their engagement in the presentation will also make you appear more credible, memorable, and likable. Third, call on your vacationers by name. It's a good reminder to them that their presence is noted and appreciated, and that you expect them to participate. Let them rise to the level of your expectations. The final group of participants is the sponge group. They are eager to absorb everything that you have to say. They understand the WIFM and they want to be there. So, what's so hard about managing this group? If you don't use them, you'll lose them. If you assume their goodwill and attention will persist despite you, you'll find that you have a growing group of vacationers, or worse, a prison riot on your hands. The sponge group starts out wanting to be engaged. Your job is to keep engaging them. If you do that, you may even find that you've converted some of your vacationers or prisoners along the way. Of course, even with all the consideration you've given to how your style and substance can keep your audience interested and involved, you'll still have questions that arise. Let's take a few minutes to address managing Q&A. First of all, you want to let your audience know how and when you will be dealing with questions. Should they hold all questions until the end? Raise them as they arise. Wait until you've asked for questions. You need to take the lead in letting your audience know how you want them to participate and when. The Q&A section or sections are often when your audience will be the most alert. Because questions and answers are interactive, they're often viewed as the most important part of a presentation. If you prepare for it as thoroughly as you prepare for the rest of your presentation and you know your key points, you should have no trouble. As part of your preparation, ask yourself, what's the toughest part of my slide presentation? And then spend some time reinforcing that area. Also ask yourself, what's the question I hope I don't get? And then practice answering that question. Keep asking and answering until you have no more weak spots or dreaded questions. Wouldn't that feel great? Of course, part of knowing your presentation is anticipating, to the best of your ability, what your audience might ask. Typically, there are 5 categories of questions you'll want to prepare for. These include importance or relevance. This is the "why should I care" question, or "how does this affect me" question. If you don't address the WIFM early on, be prepared to handle this question during the presentation. And even if you do address importance or relevance during your talk, you may get more specific questions down the line. Know what you should be able to answer and what questions you might be able to refer to another expert. Context. This is the "how does this fit into the big picture" question. Your audience will want to know how what you're offering, suggesting, or selling plays into the larger organization or their jobs as a whole. Feasibility. These are the "is it likely, probable, or even possible, and how so" questions. Be prepared to let your listeners know how realistic, practical, and viable what you're offering is. And then let them know the steps to getting there and when they can expect to hear more about those steps. Timing. This is the "when is the first or next step" question, as well as other inquiries related to scheduling. Assume that your audience, like you, has a very full plate and is challenged to find the time to take on anything new. You'll need to be empathetic, practical, and above all else, truthful. Competence. These are the "what makes you an expert?" "Why are you telling us this?" or "what do you know about this?" questions. In other words, be prepared for people to probe into or even challenge your credibility and ability. If you're delivering new, complex, or even unpopular information, your expertise and experience will be called into question, whether you deserve it or not. In addition to trying to anticipate the questions your audience will ask, from my experience, here are some other tips and tools to help manage Q&A. Always rephrase or repeat the question so everyone can hear what it was. Smile. Try to tie your answer back into the presentation you just gave, such as I mentioned earlier, but make sure you're not trying to embarrass someone for not listening carefully. Remember, you want to stay in your audience's good graces. View each question as a chance to deepen both your conversation and your relationship with your audience. Practice keeping your cool in tricky situations. Have a colleague, family member, or friend try to throw you curveball questions. Answer them to the best of your ability and then get feedback to help you for the next time. Don't guess at the answers. If you don't know, tell them where or when they can get their answer, or let them know that you'll look into it and get back to them. And then get back to them when you say you will. What's as important as anything you answer during your Q&A is how you say it. If you look worried, angry, or blank, you will signal to your audience that you don't deserve the trust you may have earned up until this point. Your lack of confidence will signal to your listeners that you're either unsure of yourself or you're trying to hide something, and they will keep prying and probing in order to find out which it is. When in doubt, come clean.